I'm reporting to you from the Hilton Anatole Hotel in Dallas. This is my Southwest Audio Fest 2025 show wrap-up. Once again, this is a fun show. This is the second year running of this show. Last year was a very fun vibe because people from Houston and Dallas and Austin were just happy to have their own local show. This year, everybody expected the show to be bigger, and in fact, there were more exhibitors, and I enjoyed the show very much. But to, I think, pretty much everybody's surprise, attendance actually seemed down versus the inaugural show last year. I spoke to about 8 exhibitors. They all agreed with me that attendance just subjectively appeared to be down. One reason this show is fun for me personally is because it's not a big show. You can see people repeatedly, you can go back to rooms, it's just a very manageable size. And the Hilton Anatole Hotel is a very large venue. Everything works, Wi-Fi works, no lines. It's just a very easy place to have the show, both from an exhibitor's point of view, I think, and as an attendee. This show, for the first time, I did a totally different protocol than I usually do. Normally, I drive myself fucking crazy doing like 10 or 11 interviews a day. By the end of the day, the end of the show, I can't find my left hand. Not doing that anymore. There's just no reason to make myself miserable. This time, I did only 3 or 4 interviews per day. The interviews are more in-depth, more focused. I took my time, and I actually think you'll like them better, but you can let me know after I edit them and post them in the coming weeks. I had a great time seeing some friends. By not driving myself crazy doing 30 interviews in 3 days, I got to spend some quality time with Keith Rochelle, who used to live near me in Los Angeles, and now lives in Dallas. Got to spend time with my friend Vasil, who lives outside of Chicago. I got to meet Hiram Toro, who is the proprietor of Supreme Acoustic Systems, and he is now the distributor for YG and Soul Note and a number of other brands. Very interesting that he's gotten into the business just in the last year or two. Supreme Acoustic Systems hosted at least 3 rooms, and it was very nice to spend some quality time with Hiram. Very nice guy. I look forward to getting to know him better over time. I'm going to divide this report into the rooms where I interviewed the designers and the rooms that I actually went back to listen to and try to just spend some relaxed time listening and getting a sense of the sound. Because when I do these interviews, I'm interviewing the people, I'm trying to focus on asking interesting questions that I think you'd want me to ask. And then I do some video of just the system playing, and I never have time to just like relax, take a breath, sit in a chair and actually listen to what the darn system sounds like. So that's why I'm going to break this up into 2 sections. So the rooms I actually visited for purposes of interviews, I interviewed Val Cora and Kevin Hayes in the Acora VAC room. Val and actually Kevin, who's actually ordered the speakers, they're all pretty excited about this new very, very tiny Acora. It's a little teeny stand-mounted, it can be on a stand, but it's also a bookshelf thing, very, very small, made out of the same granite that Val makes the big speakers with. I listened to the VRC system. Kevin was showing his new version of the flagship, I think 455 monos. He has now reverted back to a 2 chassis structure, the audio chassis separate from the power supply, so he's not using the very heavy giant tower configuration anymore. I met Dan Wright. Dan Wright has been operating Mod Wright modifications. I think he started with modifying like tube stages for DACs years and years ago. He makes his own line of solid-state electronics. I interviewed him. It was very nice to meet him. I met Luis and Johnny Yip of 3MA. They have a very elaborate, beautifully curated store in Houston with 5 different rooms. They actually host one of the very few MBL Extreme systems in the country, and it was their MBL Extreme system that Jeremy Bryan set up in the Wyeth room here. We'll get back to that. I met, again, Amadeo of Viva Audio. Amadeo is showing a brand new horn speaker called the Verticale. Yeah, Verticale. And it is a single tower. You know how his systems tend to be, except for the master horn, Amadeo's horn systems, the credenza, now the Nuda, are kind of sort of horizontal base. They're kind of a little bit low. This thing is, he says, a hopefully more attractive form factor for customers, and it's a vertical tower system with a compression super tweeter on top, a horn tweeter, a wideband mid-range, and then on each side of each speaker is two 10-inchers. So there are four 10-inch woofers on board the Verticale, which is Viva's new speaker. Amadeo was in the room with Greg Barone. Greg was, of course, showing his current generation United Home audio tape machine. Interestingly, this new vertical sort of tower style horn speaker from Amadeo comes with outboard hybrid amplifiers to drive the four 10-inch woofers in each speaker. It was very fun for me to see the MBL Extreme. I did a nice long interview with Jeremy. I've seen the Extreme twice in Munich, I think 2015 and 2016, but it's the first time I personally have seen an Extreme in the US. It was really nice to spend a bunch of time in that room. Florian Weigand, the owner of Clarisis, and Mike Bovaird, the distributor at Suncoast Audio, were showing the new generation Studio Plus loudspeaker. They were getting amazing bass in this room. Mike Bovaird was showing the system with block amplifiers. I met Alberto Guerra. He is AGD Productions. He's one of the earlier people doing gallium nitride semiconductor devices and Class D amplifiers, so I interviewed him. I met Sam and Don of Spatial Audio. Spatial Audio produces a line of modestly priced, like $6,000 to $13,000 range, of open baffle speakers, nice heavy solid wood baffle, two big cone drivers, and either a dome tweeter or a ribbon tweeter. Interesting, I met with them. I interviewed Damon von Schweikert about the new von Schweikert VR30, and I interviewed Gary Leeds about his new Rachna Daka, a new line that he's importing from a designer, Nikolai. One thing that upset me a little, very little vinyl. It was digital after digital after digital. I think the exhibitors, whether they're dealers or distributors, are just finding vinyl too annoying to deal with. And a lot of audiophiles these days just care about streaming. And from my point of view, since I'm an analog person, I really was missing a lot of vinyl. Only one important one, there was a a turntable in the Burmester room, and Gideon of Audio Arts was showing the Zeloton Evo with a nice Reed turntable full. He didn't skimp. He brought his big turntable set up from with Reed and was playing only vinyl. So kudos to Gideon for being purist analog. No digital, nothing. It was vinyl or nothing in that room. So I really appreciated that. Okay, rooms I actually listened to. The Viva Audio room with Amadeo's new tower system, all Viva electronics. Always love that stuff. I've always loved the Viva Aurora monos. A couple of years ago, I took Amadeo aside and I said, Amadeo, I love your Aurora. Can't you make a 2-tube 845 or a 4-tube 845 in parallel for me? He looked at me very sternly and said, Ron, no, you get a more sensitive loudspeaker. Okay, so Aurora mono ain't never going to be more than a single 845 output tube. That's just the way it's going to be. Okay, so the new Verticale system, I think it sounded very good. I think he literally just finished it as like it was being created. So I think it broke in over the 3 days and was sounding smoother and purer over time. I think it's a very interesting system. It packs a lot of yummy stuff. It packs a pure wave-guided horns for the super tweeter, or a compression driver for the super tweeter, horn for the tweeter, horn for the wideband mid-range, and it has 4 10-inch woofers on board. So if somebody wants a pretty complicated but all-in-one box, I definitely think that's something to consider. I thought it had a very nice sound, not edgy or bright. I think it smoothed out over time even as the weekend wore on. Definitely something to keep an eye on. Back to Gideon. Gideon was getting great sound. Partly, I'm just hugely biased in favor of analog. It was just a relief to hear beautiful, pure AAA in a room rather than digital, which many times sounded a touch dry to me, a touch digital, a touch electronic. Anyway, Gideon's room was a breath of fresh air to hear just pure vinyl, and it sounded wonderful. I guess it's true that the sound of Solution has gotten a little more in my personal direction over time. It sounds, the Solution, I guess, is moving in a slightly more natural musical direction over time, so that's a good thing. I went into the Estelan room, powered by Vetus. Vetus, I think I consider Vetus to be a touch on the smooth side. It's kind of up my alley. I don't like very tightly controlled, very sharp transient stuff, and I think Vetus I kind of like. The system, I don't remember what the digital was, but I did find it a touch dry. For whatever reason, the Estelans are gorgeous. I just think they may not be my cup of tea sonically. I like the Vetus, I just found the system just a touch digital, a touch electronic-y artifice, a touch dry for my personal taste. Damon and Gary's Von Schweikert room, the VR30 sounds very good. Has a beryllium tweeter, which is sometimes not my cup of tea, but I never hear any hardness or edginess from their beryllium tweeter. It's a very compact system. They are apparently doing very well with it because it achieves a very high price-performance ratio. It's a pretty compact form factor. The VR30 was sounding great. And of course, Gary was using the Westminster Lab REIs and the Quest preamp. Very good sounding room. And he was also showing this new Rocknet DAC that he's been promoting. YG, this was one of the big rooms hosted by Hiram Turo of Supreme Acoustic Systems, that a giant room downstairs, the huge YG XV 4-tower system powered by Soul Note solid state. And this was the room that my friend Vasil was hosting the Tycho Olympus with the I.O., and it sounded very good. I actually liked this YG system more, frankly, than I sometimes like YG systems, because I sometimes find YG a little too neutral, or a little too neutral for me. But I really think the giant woofer towers kind of perhaps we know how you add woofer towers, you add subwoofers, it affects the entire frequency range. And I just think I like the bit lower center of gravity frequency location when you have a big woofer system. I think the woofage just smooths out the whole frequency range to me. And I did like the YG system. A couple of people reported they thought it sounded, they didn't care for the direction that I like. They were missing some of the detail and resolution. A couple of people thought it sounded a little like a touch muddy or something, but I actually preferred it more than I usually prefer YG systems. So I actually like the big YG system here. I thought the Clarisys system sounded very good. Now, I have to say, in the interest of full disclosure, I am Clarisys dealer for California, so feel free to discount what I'm saying. But I did a long interview with Florian discussing the new driver, crossover, and rigidity enhancing improvements of the new Studio Plus versus the Studio that I have at home, one generation behind. I thought the system sounded great. I am going to be actually, for the first time, at the show in Costa Mesa in June. I am going to be exhibiting the Clarisys system myself as an exhibitor. I'm not doing my journalism thing. I'm going to be an exhibitor. So if you're interested in hearing Clarisys in Southern California, please come to Emiko and Daryl's show, the THE show, this June. You'll be able to hear Clarisys. I'm partnering in the room with Gary Leeds. Tink is going to be doing some DJing, so you'll meet the bunch of us. So if you're interested in Clarisys, please come to the show in June. I got to hang out with my friend Todd Binnix and his lovely wife Sally. They were hosting a avant-garde system under the brand Vibrant Audio. Todd, we all know by now, Todd is just an avant-garde whisperer. Angie Lisi, the distributor, knows that. He's the man to set up avant-garde, and he's just brilliant at it. Nobody knows how he's so good at it, but he was getting great sound. Over the years, I've been mixing avant-garde because I've generally found them a little bit edgy, a little bit bright, absolutely needing tubes. But Todd vanquishes brightness and edginess, and his systems sound pure and wonderful. He was using the built-in Itron on these mezzos, I believe they are. It was some current generation duo. He was getting wonderful sound. I liked it very much. I actually went back to just enjoy the music and listen. I got to spend some time in Jeremy's MBL Extreme Room. I've heard the 101E Mark II many times, including at Greg's house for days. Greg's a dealer for MBL. And I have a lot of ear time on the 101E Mark II. I like the Extreme. Once again, I think all that woofage, I interviewed Jeremy and we discussed how the new improvements to the self-powered woofer towers have now gained great flexibility in delay, time adjustments, and parametric EQ flexibility, and using the Noble style Class D MBL amplification. I just think no matter what you have, you add big woofage, whether it's subwoofers or woofer towers, and it changes the overall frequency balance in a direction I like. How I describe it, it lowers the frequency center of gravity of the system, and it has the appearance of less upper mid-range energy, less treble energy, greater foundation. I liked it. I loved listening to the big MBL Extreme system. It was a real treat for me. That's my wrap up. Please subscribe to the channel so I can keep doing these shows for you. And I look forward to seeing you at Expona.